What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and this video is exciting for me because I can finally get back to doing build logs. I've had to kind of put my building on hold for the past couple of months. I was moving and a couple other things, but I finally settled in enough, and I've got some more time now to get back to doing some water-cooled builds. So if it's not already obvious from the title or the thumbnail, what you're looking at right now is a stripped down Thermaltake View 31, and this is going to be the chassis that we're using for my son's new build, which currently, and you may have already seen this in a previous video, but he's got a pretty cool inverted water-cooled build in the Corsair Air 240. That build, I put a lot of time and effort into it, but it's a little bit frustrating that I'm not able to add a water block to the graphics card, and aside from that, I don't know. I just want to try something new. So I chose this case, honestly, just out of pure curiosity. It looks like it would be fun to build in. And let's face it, if you're not having fun doing this, then it kind of defeats the purpose. So this is the very beginning stages of sort of getting the components in and figuring out how everything's going to fit. I figure in this part one, I will maybe do a little brief overview of this case to give you guys an idea of what it's like to work in. I don't know. We'll go from there. We'll see how far I can get. But yeah, let's take a look. All right. So first thing first, I ordered the standard version of this case because if you order the RGB version, you don't actually get the Ring Plus fans, which are the ones that you can do all the cool controls with. If you haven't noticed by now, if you've seen my previous builds, I'm not really a huge fan of RGB, but my son's 14. Stuff like this is really cool to him, especially the fact that you can control all this stuff from like your smartphone. So that's going to be cool. And to make the most of this case with having that sort of see-through acrylic front, you got to have something going on here that's at least a little bit flashy. So I just ordered the standard version. I don't know, I think it was less than $100 to be honest. It came with two 140 millimeter blue ring fans, but if you want the Ring Plus, this is the 3-pack that comes with the controller. This by itself's like $100, so it's a little pricey. Hopefully it's worth it. I don't know, we'll find out on that. And then I do plan on ordering or mounting the graphics card vertically, so I did have to order the PCIe riser cable as well. So yeah, so I guess all in all, even though the case comes in at a little under $100, when you add in what I spent on the fans and then the riser cable, it's $200 and something. But I would say so far what I'm seeing is sorry, phone's ringing. I'm pretty happy with, the case so far. I've kind of stripped it down to get a feel for what we're going to be doing in here, and seems to have a lot of room. The case really is not that big considering how spacious it is, but I think part of the reason that it feels so spacious is that it's pretty much an open chassis, and Thermaltake did a great job of including a lot of different mounting options for fans, radiators, pumps, I mean, you name it. And I know Thermaltake sometimes they kind of take some shit from a lot of the water cooling enthusiasts, but I mean, to be fair, Thermaltake's probably the one company out there that is really focusing hard on building cases that are water cooling friendly. So I give them props for that. I mean, you're paying right around $100 for a case. You can't expect the greatest quality. The steel feels a little bit flimsy. But again, I think this is going to be a fun case to build in. And I think we're going to be able to do something cool here. So right now what you're looking at is I grabbed a 360 millimeter radiator. This is a Black Ice Nemesis GTS, so it's only 30 millimeter thick, but just for the sake of kind of getting some stuff in here to get a feel for how this is all going to fit, I put this in here. This is not the radiator I'm going to be using. But I've got the Singularity mounts. I've got a tall bits power res on the mod top, and then a D5 pump. So this is essentially the combination I'm going to be using here. And then, of course, I've got the fans, mounted on the outside. One thing I did sort of investigate, let's see if I can show you guys here. So on the front panel, the air is going to have to get sucked in on this one side here. So I'm for sure going to be pulling out the sort of filter that's in here. And then I think I'm even going to cut all of this out so it's just an open rectangle to maximize that airflow, because I don't know, I don't foresee it having the best airflow for those front fans in its sort of stock configuration. And yeah, so that's one thing right off the bat I know I'm going to be doing to sort of mod this case. But after getting this in here, which the main reason I did this is I wanted to get a feel for how far this was going to come into the case, but there's tons of room in here. So I'm going to use a 45 millimeter thick 360 in the front, and then I'm going to do a 45 millimeter thick 240 at the top. I'm not going to try to cram two 360s in here because, quite frankly, I don't need to. We're going to be cooling a 6700K and a GTX 1080, so this is going to be plenty of cooling capacity for those components. Probably could even add, which granted if it's vertical it's not an option, but you could probably even cool dual graphics cards just fine and keep your fan RPMs pretty low. So yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of what we're looking at as far as the case being stripped down. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and get as many of the main components as I can in here, along with the radiators that I'm going to be using, and just sort of mock up the build to get a feel for how everything fits in here, and see if there's any additional modifications I'm going to have to do, and then kind of go from there. Alright, so here we are with the majority of the at least major components installed. Some of these are temporary, but at least to get a feel for what we're dealing with here. I think this configuration is going to work out great. I don't really see any reason to deviate from my original plan to have the 360 up front, the 240 up top. It's, again, I didn't want to try to cram another 360 up here because I don't need to, and I also wanted to leave myself the option to, I'm going to run a 140 back here at a low RPM just to be bringing some air across the motherboard and RAM and that sort of thing to make sure that it's getting some good airflow, because I don't foresee very much airflow from the intake in the front really making its way back into this area. So I think that's going to be the best situation, and then all of the airflow can escape out the top. I mean, obviously I'm going to have two exhaust fans, but the whole entire top of the case is pretty much ventilated, so the majority of the heat is just going to escape out the top. So again, I think this is going to work out great. I think I should be able to run all of the fans at a very low RPM pretty much full time to keep the system nice and quiet. I'm excited to get the block on here and see how that's going to look. It's the nickel acrylic EK block, so obviously I want to show off the fluid there, but I let my son have a little bit more input this time as far as kind of the scheme that he wanted to go for, and he liked the idea of doing sort of a black and kind of gunmetal or silver sort of scheme. So that's obviously what we've gone for here. We've got the nickel block, the downplats we already had in the build before. So yeah, the black sparkle fittings. I don't know what I'm going to do with fluid yet, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with lighting inside the case. I've toyed around with the idea of not doing RGB inside the case, just only having the RGB fans in the front, let that kind of be its own sort of show, but maybe just doing a simple white light to illuminate the components in here. Might be an interesting sort of juxtaposition with a very monochromatic sort of look on the inside, but very nice and classy, and then kind of a light show going on the front of the case. So I don't know, we'll see on that, but as you can see, this case is very roomy, and again, I don't know a good way to really show the size here. I wish I had one of the other cases handy I could sit next to it, but again, it's really not that large. I would put it on par with size-wise. It's probably right about the same size as the Fractal Define, R5 or Nano or Define S series of cases. So it's still a mid-tower, but just the way that they have this laid out and very open allows for a lot of different sort of configurations. But yeah, I think this is where I'm going to stop this one here. That my next step is to obviously I need to get the block on, sort of figure out how I want to do my tubing runs, make sure I have all the fittings I need, order what I don't have. I don't have the power supply in here right now, but I've got it. And then if you've seen my previous builds, I like to play around with acrylic panels. I've got some ideas here. I think I'm going to integrate a screen again like I did on the Silver Fox build. Probably put it down in this area because I'm going to have a little bit of a, empty space to do something with. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a neat build. So yeah, guys, stick around for upcoming build logs related to this build. I'm sure I'll have at least 2 more along the way. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, as always, feel free to ask in the comments section. I try to be pretty active down there and answer as many questions as I can. But for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and call it quits for part 1 of the build log, and I will see you guys in the next video.